Landlording and you're freaked out when people call you and they want to book a showing and you have no idea what to ask? Or have you been a landlord for a while and you're getting really frustrated because you're getting kind of the cream of the crap when you're doing your showings and you're thinking, why am I wasting my time on these people? They never qualify to get into my property anyway. If either of those are the case, you're in the right place because Gil Donkersgood and I are going to walk through the pre-screening questions that you can ask during your pre-screening interviews for your potential tenants. And that will help you separate the chaff from the grain, or the people who are wasting your time from people who actually would qualify to rent your property. Welcome to Alberta Landlords Watch. I am your host, Nelda Schulte. Just like my website says, www.neldaschulte.com. And I'm joined by Gil Donkersgood, who was my former partner in crime when we owned a property management business together. And we are here to help you and support you. And that's what my website is all about. I offer a lot of resources for landlords that are free and some that are very reasonably priced and paid that are there to help make your life a lot easier and bypass some of the landmines that I stepped in when I first started landlording. So if you are new to Alberta Landlords Watch, hit the subscribe button, and all the links that we talk about will be posted in the discussion on the bottom of the video in YouTube. And stick around to the end because we've got some really good bonus tips for you people as well. So stay for the beginning, stay for the middle, and then stay for the ending. And like us, subscribe, and share with your friends. And that's my big sales pitch. Now Gil's actually going to be doing the interviewing here, and I'm going to be the potential tenant. So I get to have some fun today, and Gil gets to be the street man. Are you ready to begin, Gil?
I believe I am.
Okay. Fire away, big guy.
Okay, applicant. Would you tell me a bit about yourself?
Oh, what do you want to know? Well, I just got out of jail, but I was there for the wrong reasons. Like, I really should never have been in jail in the first place. And, all that stuff that they made up about me, the bank robberies, break and entry, that was all fictitious. I got framed, really. That's all it was. And don't believe any of the stuff my former landlords say about me couch surfing or breaking back into the house, because that's just all crap. Anyway, I really like your property, and I think I'd be great at it. I'd be great for you. Do you want to know anything else?
Is there anything else you'd like to tell me?
I think you'd like my kids. Yeah, I've got 10 kids from my first marriage, and then a couple kids that my boyfriend and I share, and then he's got custody of a couple kids but they're only with us every other weekend. So really, it's not that many people. And my mother-in-law, my brother sometimes come and stay with me. And I like chocolate. And I'm suing my last two landlords. They were just kind of dirt bags, so I had to do it. That should be about it.
Okay, so having asked that question and having sat through it, what are the tips that we gained out of the first question?
Well, why don't you tell me?
Okay. I was very quiet.
Bing.
I sat here being very quiet. The only time I spoke was when you asked me, would you like me to tell you something else, or words to that effect? And I didn't lead you. I said, what else would you like to tell me? I did not lead you down a path because I need to find out the path that you're going to go down. And I sit here as quietly as I can to make you not necessarily uncomfortable, but nature abhors a vacuum. People hate silence. As the landlord, we should learn to be comfortable with that discomfort because we want to make sure that the potential tenant is speaking as much as they can, maybe tripping themselves up by saying things they don't want to say because they just hate the quiet so much.
And oddly enough, it did feel uncomfortable with you not saying anything, even though I know you very well. It was like, I guess I should keep talking.
And you even knew I was going to do that, but it still felt uncomfortable. So it's a very important lesson. And to be honest, Nelda is actually really good at being the questioner and making people feel that discomfort, whereas I have sometimes been known to start filling in the blanks myself rather than let the tenant do that. This is a very, very important skill. And it's one that is good to practice. And it's one, when you are doing those interviews, be extremely cognizant of it. Be prepared to actually use that.
Yes, Gil and I were good cop, bad cop. I'm going to add this in, especially when it came to pretty young women, because the pretty young women would really turn on the charm when they thought Gil was going to be making the decision by himself. As soon as they'd see me enter the room, their faces would, oh, busted. Another woman.
And that did actually save us a few times. Because you're also a bit tougher than I was. But you have to be in this business. You do have to be.
So we're going to go through 13 questions. That was the first one. We gave you a couple pointers, and then we're going to go through the other 13 that I will write in the notes so that you can keep them and you can save them for yourself in the bottom of the discussion board on YouTube at the end of this video.
Next question. What date would you like to move in?
I was hoping I could move in today. I've got cash. I could go to the bank and get any kind of cash you need. Could I be in by 6?
Now that's a big red flag. Another red flag might be 3 months from now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and okay, so I'll answer the 3-month one. Yeah, I'm getting married in 3 months, and I was wondering if you could hold the property for me.
Yes, another bit of a red flag. The one where they're saying I want to move in today, that's nasty, because either the person is in a position where they've gone afoul of their existing landlord, or something else that's forcing them to do something very quickly, or they're just not very well organized. People who make decisions in a hurry don't often make the right decisions. And it's when someone needs to move in, and the cash question point is a very important one too. Cash is a very dangerous way to do transactions when it comes to real estate. There are a lot of issues around cash, like where did it come from? Especially when you consider the proceeds of terrorism and organized crime and that sort of thing. It's untraceable. So generally speaking, we avoid cash. Do you want to add anything to that, Nelda?
Yeah, whenever people try and put pressure on you, back off, because there's a good reason for that as well.
Yes. Now, as far as the long-term holding the property for 3 months, well, the most obvious concern I have is I'm not going to have rent for 3 months. That's a big one. The further out you go, the less probable it is that the terms will be honored. I would also put forward.
Occasionally, you do have people, like I have said to people, if you put down a deposit and you're willing to pay for the other 2 months, yes. But if you don't move in, you lose your deposit and you're not getting your rent back for those 2 months. But yeah, not very good. You need people who can move in within your time frame, not months and months ahead, or tonight.
Yeah, the tonight thing would really scare me because, well, we have had that experience in the past. And the other thing is you need to have time to vet your tenants. Mm-hmm. And if they say tonight, you're not going to have the time to get all the information back. So it's just a bad idea all around.
Yeah. Okay.
What kind of a lease can you sign? What kind of a term?
I was hoping I could stay for 6 months. And if I like it, then I'll sign another 6-month lease.
So leases are kind of interesting because it depends where you are. One of the nice things about Alberta is a fixed term lease ends at the end of the term. This is not the case in Ontario or BC, where they automatically roll into month to month. So the benefit to being in Alberta is if you're inclined, and I know some people who do this, you could do like a 3-month lease, see what the people felt like, and if it feels like a good fit, then you can sign another lease that's going to go like a year or something. Once you know you've got a good fit. But most people don't do that. Most people just go for a 1-year lease, and at the end of the year, they well, depending on where you are in Alberta, you either extend or do a second lease, or you end the lease. In BC and on Ontario, you just roll it into a month to month. This is where it's very important that the applicant fits what you need, because if you want a 1-year lease and they want to sign a 3-month lease, then this is not a fit.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, that did happen all the time. When we managed properties, people would say, well, I just want to do 3 months, or just want 6 weeks, or, well, then go on Airbnb because a regular property is not going to want to rent for a month and a half or 3 months or 4 months.
And then you got to go through the expense of advertising again, and the effort of trying to find another tenant, and the risk of a vacancy 3 months down the road. And this is another place where you really want to think hard about what time of year is it, because you don't necessarily want someone signing a 3-month lease in August, for example, because now you're running into Christmas and you're never going to find a tenant at Christmas time. So generally speaking, the longer the lease you can get, depending on how you want to do your business, the better you are.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any further thoughts on that, Nelda?
Sounds pretty good, Gil.
All right. Do you have any pets?
Nope.
Okay. Actually, I asked that question poorly. The right way to ask that question is, how many pets do you have?
Well, I don't really have any pets, but my ex has 3 show dogs that I have on alternate weekends. We share custody of them. And I don't have any pets, but my mother comes to visit me sometimes, and she's got a couple of dogs, but they're not mine. And then I've got a friend who comes to stay with me, and she's got 3 cats. Oh, and I've got a scorpion. That's not really a pet.
So again, playing the silent card there. Do you have any pets versus how many pets do you have? They're 2 very different questions, because do you have any pets is a yes, no. How many pets is something that they're going to have to think about. And they probably didn't expect the question in the first place to be framed the way we framed it. So how many pets do you have is probably going to get a more honest answer. Pets are interesting because sometimes people don't think of pets as pets. And yeah, this is another place though where the silence is not a bad idea, because people might, they'll start just filling in the information because they're uncomfortable not saying anything and having the quiet.
But if you have a condo or a house that, let's say you've got an up-down house, like I do. I've got 2 houses like that. One of them is pet friendly, the other one isn't. So the house that I live in is not pet friendly because I'm really allergic to animal dander. So if somebody had a cat or a dog or whatever here, I would be absolutely miserable. My sinuses would be all stuffed up. I'd have itchy eyes. I'd have trouble breathing. Like, it really would not be good for me. So the other place is pet friendly. So the people who move there know that, they can have a dog or a cat or whatever if they pay a pet deposit. But they also know that they have to like pets, because pets are welcome in that house. So, if you have a house that does not take pets, or a condo that doesn't accept pets, or apartment buildings that don't accept pets, then if someone has pets, even if they're pet sitting, or they've got shared custody, which we used to see a lot of times, or they'll take their dog, their daughter's or their son's dog or cat for the weekend or a week or a month or whatever, then that's not going to work. So it's better to know those things up front.
Yep, and that will become part of the lease as well. The agreement will be made, but it's important to get that very clear. So, applicant, how many people will be living in the property?
Well, there's me, and maybe my boyfriend will move in with me. and I've got 2 kids that come on the weekends, and he's got 3 kids that from his first marriage that visit us every second weekend, and then his mother comes to stay with us sometimes.
I won't do the silent treatment this time. I think we get it. But yeah, it's important. I mean, everybody's going to be on the lease who's going to be in the property anyway, in one form or another, whether they'll be a tenant or what's the other word that they have on the lease?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Other applicant.
Other applicant.
Yeah.
And it has to be made very clear that only people who are on the lease are allowed to live in the property. But you have to ask this question too, because if it's a 2-bedroom and they're planning to move 8 people in, or even if there's going to be 8 people on weekends, that's just not going to work. They're going to have horrible lives, and your property is probably going to undergo a lot more wear and tear than it would if it was just the 2 people who agreed.
Plus, there's the minimum housing and health standards. There are X amount of people that are allowed to stay in X amount of space, X amount of people that you can have sharing one bathroom. So I always think it's funny because whenever I've asked this question in the past, nobody ever gives me a number. Like, they don't say 6 or 5 or whatever. They start listing off like what I did. Oh, my boyfriend and his kids and my kids and then the mother. Like, they never actually say 6. So I usually sit there and I'm writing a little tick, tick. I'm like, so that's 7 people for a bachelor suite condo. Yeah.
It is important, and this is one of the reasons that we actually do inspections, is to look for evidence of people who are staying in the property who are not on the lease. How much do you smoke or vape?
Well, not very much. I've got I smoke medical marijuana every day. I have a prescription for it, so I can do that. And the occasional cigarette.
So, do you smoke? Might get a no answer because someone might think, well, I don't smoke. I just smoke cigars on occasion. So, yeah, the how much do you smoke is a little bit more of a precise question. Any more?
The medical marijuana does come up fairly frequently.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I believe medical marijuana. Now, I'm not sure how the rules are with smoking here in BC, but I mean, I'm quite sure you can say don't smoke inside.
Oh yeah, you can restrict where people smoke, like the other building. Office buildings, apartment buildings, condos, houses. You could say this area is non-smoking. You can smoke in that area.
Right, but if a person's on medical marijuana, I believe, and I shouldn't speak out of turn here, but I believe you can't reject them because that would be a human rights issue.
Yeah, you can't reject them, but you can restrict where they smoke.
Right. Okay. Have you given your notice to your current landlord?
No, but I think he knows.
So this is an important question for a couple of reasons. Actually, several. For one, the likelihood is that they won't want you calling their landlord if they haven't given notice. So if you're trying to do a reference, they want to have given their notice first. That's one. Another is it's going to tell you something about the person's personality, their character, if they have given the appropriate amount of notice to their landlord. So then it becomes a question, are they going to want to have the place in 2 months and give their notice in 1 month, or are they going to come in immediately? One thing is, if they're going to do a midnight move on the last day of the month to get to live in your place, then you can expect them to do the same thing to you when their lease ends.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional thoughts, Nelda?
No, those are good. Those are good, Gil.
What is your current address?
Can I take a moment to look it up here? I always forget. I just drive there.
That would be a red flag for sure. I mean, it should be on, some piece of correspondence, because I don't know anyone who doesn't still get mail. I will be honest, I have to look up my postal code, but I do know my address.
Yeah.
Um,
I have had applicants who couldn't list where they were living, or didn't know.
yeah, we have had people, like when you're doing a landlord reference check, you definitely need to know the address. That's all there is to it. They can give you a landlord's name, but if they don't give you an address, then there's a very good chance that the landlord's name that they're giving you is not actually a landlord, but a friend of theirs who's going to say nice things.
Yeah, and then that's a question that you can sort of cross-reference a couple times, because you'll see it on an application if they get that far, if you actually let them in. And then you'll see it again on the credit check, because credit checks pull current and previous addresses.
That is true. Anytime someone's being dodgy with the answers that they're giving, that just makes me think this person has something to hide. When did you move into this address?
Why do you keep asking me so many questions? Like, I just want to see the property. I didn't think I'd have to answer 50 questions. Like, you've asked me about 50 freaky questions already. I don't want to buy the house. I just want to move in as a tenant. Like, geez, what is your problem?
Well, one of the problems is you can't count, because we've only had 9 so far. Anytime you get pushback, and we have had pushback, we talk about this frequently. The application process for a property or for a job is where a person is putting their best foot forward. So if their best foot is not one of cooperation and respect, then you know that their worst foot is probably something really nasty. Now, why else would we want to know when they moved into their previous address? If they're the kind of person who's flipping from property to property, there's probably a reason for that. Mm-hmm. It speaks to their stability and their character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts there, Nelda, before we move forward?
That's good. I think, there again, it's another question you can cross-reference on their application and on their credit report, because that's you're asking some of the same questions, probably a lot of the same questions you'll ask them during the showing, and you're checking for consistency. So
yes.
They're kind of your first line of fire, because you'd be surprised. People will say one thing when they talk to you on the phone, like they might be on their best behavior, and then they see you during the showing and they get loosened up. You smile at them. You look really interested in what they have to say. And then they just start kind of saying all kinds of stuff. And you're thinking, oh, well, that doesn't sound like what you told me over the phone, So my spidey senses are tingling, and that's good to make note of.
Are you working full time, or how do you make your income?
Well, I kind of work for myself, and I've been unemployed for the last, 6-8 months, somewhere in there.
Okay, so that was a bad question. Asking for what the source of income is, it goes against the human rights stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very careful. You can ask for income verification at the point of doing the processing an application, but asking someone what their source of income is can be considered discriminatory. It's a very fine line that you have to walk. And there are actually there can be substantial penalties for crossing those lines. I saw just recently there was an article where someone was saying, I forget what exactly it was. I think it was a religious affiliation they were requiring, and you just can't do that unless, I believe, you're a religious denomination building. I have heard about that, but yeah, you have to be very, very careful.
Yeah, so any kind of language that shows that you're excluding somebody is considered discriminatory. So if you say, do you have a job? Do you work full time? That's could imply that anyone who doesn't work full time, who doesn't have a job, is excluded from renting your property. And there are other ways people can make money or have income other than a full time job. Some people are trust fund babies. You have other people who've gotten an inheritance. Some people won the lottery. Some people get alimony. So, I mean, there are different ways to make income. So, you can't say, do you have a job? What can you say, though?
Can you verify your source of income?
Mm-hmm. And that's fair and that's legal. So, and that you can 100% ask that on an application form as well.
So the rent is going to be $2,200 a month, and there's going to be a 1 month a security deposit that's worth 1 month's rent. Are you comfortable with that?
Oh no! I mean, that's like $4,400. I have to cough that up right now. Like, can't I pay it in installments? Like, that's a lot of money to cough up. Holy cow! I didn't realize it'd be that expensive.
So this happens fairly frequently as well. Mm-hmm. There are concerns with doing the installments. I know people who do it, but it does put you in harm's way. If you haven't charged the security deposit and they don't pay it, you still have a tenant. You still have a lease. Mm-hmm. So you may have difficulty collecting that security deposit. And that means when they move out, they have no real motivation to make sure they leave the place in a decent condition.
Yeah. So you could tell them that they have to pay those two up front before they can take possession. So that's your policy. That's the way it goes.
Yep. Otherwise, you do face risk. As soon as that lease is signed, you have a tenant. Makes no difference how much they've paid. Once you have a tenant, then in order to get rid of the tenant, you have to go through the eviction process. So this is why we always say get the money up front.
Yep. So those are the 13 questions. Now let's talk about, let's say you got somebody who's really good and they've answered all the questions and they sound like they are good, potentially good tenants. They've met all the pre-qualifying criteria and you want to book a showing for them. So what do you do, Gil?
Well, you book a showing and then you say, please send us a text an hour before the showing to confirm that we are still on. Because a lot of people just cancel. A lot of people cancel and don't tell you. You might be driving to the property and find that nobody shows. The other thing is asking them to send a text basically tells you that they can follow instructions, which can be very helpful.
Yeah. Yes. So you're checking their behavior and consideration as well. Okay. Occasionally people have an accident or, something happened if they have children or whatever, and they can't make it or they forgot. That's fine. They can reschedule, but they still have to text you an hour before. So
it's just basic consideration. And that's another thing. I mean, we're going to be good to our tenants. We expect our tenants to be respectful of us as well.
Yeah. So that's your big bonus tip. That saved me a lot of time. Now, when I lived in a property and people were coming for a showing, I didn't really care if they didn't show up because I lived there. So it wasn't like I had to drive anywhere to show them the property. But when we had a property management business and we were driving all over the city all of the time, it used to make me crazy when people didn't show up.
Yeah. So we got in the habit very early on of requiring texts because that saved us a pile of wasted time.
Yes. And sometimes I would call ahead of time. Sometimes people would say, "Oh, I'm on my way. Sorry, I forgot to text you. I'm on my way," and they actually did show up. But basically, you're relying on them to make good their promise and to be considerate of your time. Because otherwise, you're driven down. There goes your time. There goes your evening. There goes your tank of gas. Now, if you live in a place where you can schedule multiple appointments, like in 15-minute intervals, great. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes that's not possible. But if you can, it's good because it creates kind of a spirit of competition amongst the tenants. And it also is a big time saver for you because you're not having to do this showing at that time, that showing on that day. I've also known people who've done open houses. There again, it depends on what region you're in. Sometimes you can do that, other times you can't. So those are a couple other bonus tips that you can put under your hat, put in your tool bag.
There's actually, can I just throw one other question at you, because there is one other question that we would ask. We use background and credit checks as part of our screening process. Do you have a problem with this? We're not necessarily looking for perfect credit, but we're just looking for the truth.
No, I really don't like people running credit checks because that affects my credit score. Like, really, who do you people think you are? Like, that is terrible. Why would you run a credit check? I'm just renting. I'm not wanting to own this place. I don't want to pay you cash for it. I just want to move in.
There's a few points here. The first is a person's behavior is quite often reflected in the credit. So if they've got good credit, they're more likely to be responsible. Now, this is not always true, and there are times when life events damage someone's credit, in which case they'll be honest, hopefully, and they'll say, this is what happened. And you might be able to get information from their bank that indicates that they are rebuilding their credit or they're doing something responsible to correct whatever circumstances have led them to this position. The other thing, and we have experienced this, is, again, it goes back to what I said about putting your best foot forward. We have had people who really wanted a place, but then they just pushed back on a credit check so aggressively. And we're thinking, it's about cooperation. It's about, it's about allowing us to make sure that you're the right person, and you're pushing against us. This is not cooperative, and you're not giving us a warm fuzzy that you're actually a good tenant. And we have had that, and we've walked away from people, even though they may well have been good tenants. But the fact that they were pushing back as aggressively as they did told us they weren't the people for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had people, I call it putting up a smoke screen, where they try and make you feel badly because you asked for it. And at the time, I would never identify myself as a property management business owner. I'd say, well, I'm really sorry, but that's the company policy and I just work here. But I wouldn't let them push back. And then I've had people who actually made note of my name and threatened to slander me, and did.
Yep.
But it didn't stick. They would make up something fictitious and post it on a website. And it would get back to me. People would say, oh, Nelda, do you realize that this was written here? And it was some strange thing. And I'd be like, nah.
I really don't believe that you juggle cats. I just don't.
Well, occasionally, but not very often. But yeah, it's yes, you get, and then you have people who like to throw their weight around and tell you that they've got this fancy position. I'm a lawyer. Why would you want to do my credit check? I own a law firm, and I'm thinking, I didn't believe them. But I didn't say that. I'd be like, well, sorry, company policy,
And again, keeping in mind that their credit quite potentially will give you an indication of what their personality is like and how well they'll be paying you when it comes to rent time. So this is all to protect the landlord, and if the tenant doesn't want to go through the hoops, then let them find somewhere else.
Yeah. We have asked people sometimes, is there anything you want to tell me about your credit score before I run it?
Yeah.
And then that's a good question, because there are good people who've had bad things happen to them, lots of them, and they have filed for bankruptcy. So that could be a death in a family, death of a spouse. Maybe they got very sick and they didn't have disability insurance. They lost their job. Sometimes death of a child will send people off the rails. life stuff. So I don't think people should be punished for that if they're making every effort to get back on track again, and they can show you what efforts they've made. You can track that. So, but if they tell you, if they're honest about it, then usually we were willing to work with people who'd filed for bankruptcy, and we never had any problems with them as tenants. But we did make them jump through a lot of hoops.
Yes, and that's why we do more than just the one question. You ask the 13 questions, it gives you a bigger, a blue sky view of what the person's like. So that's why you and always remember that as soon as you put a bad tenant in, or as soon as you don't do the diligence you needed to do and make a mistake, then that's going to cost you in time and money and frustration and stress, which is why the vetting is so important, and doing a good job of it just saves so much.
It does. So what we just went through was the pre-screening. So that's when people take a look at your ad, they call you or they text you and they say, hey, I'm interested. I'd like to see your property. And we always make people call us and talk to us. A lot of people do Zoom calls as well. They want to see the person that they're talking to, or they'll do WhatsApp on the phone or whatever. So it's always a good idea to talk to the person, just because you get a different vibe from them than if they're texting. And if they're texting or emailing, you don't know if that's the actual person who would be the tenant. So this is another way for you to check, so that when you do book a showing, you can say, oh, you've got a different voice than the person who called. How did that happen? Yeah. So those are the 13 questions that we like to ask for the pre-screening. And we hope that helps you. I'm going to post them down below in the video. And if you'd like access to my 5-step tenant screening process, which includes the pre-screening tips, you can log on to my website, www.neldaschulte.com, and it's a free access to a webinar on how to do pre-screening questions. And I also have a course on how to screen your tenants on a 5-step tenant screening process. So if you like this video, if it was helpful to you, like it, comment, subscribe, share.
Can I ask a quick question?
I think I know what you're going to ask.
I was going to say, is there a book that might have this information in it too?
There sure is. It's called The Canadian Landlord's Handbook. So nice of you to ask there, Gil.
That's what I do.
And where can you get this book, Gil?
Oh, isn't it available on Amazon?
Oh my gosh, it is. Yes, it is available on Amazon. So yes, if you'd like the book, if you want everything in writing in your hot little hands, and you can just kind of keep dog-earing back and forth to pages that you want to frequent, the handbook is there for you. So thank you for that. Final reminder, and we'll see you in another couple weeks for our next program. And thank you very much, Gil, for joining me and for grilling me.
It was fun.
And we look forward to helping you and supporting you always through the website and through these videos. And bye for now.
Bye-bye.